We've got ourselves the brand new Tamron 70-210 f4, and we're going to see how it stacks up against the competition. But don't forget that Canon have just come out with a brand new 70-200 f4, and it promises to be way better than the original. And Nikon also have a current 70-200 f4 on the market. Let's see how all three of these lenses compare against each other. Welcome back DPReview TV viewers. It's Chris Nichols here from DPReview, coming to you from the Calgary Stampede, and we've got Kyle Marquardt with us as our special guest. Thanks for coming, Kyle.
It's me, Kyle. I take photos commercially. I do guiding as well.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff in the polar regions.
Yeah, usually not as hot as this, hey? I mean, You're always in the Arctic or the Antarctic, but yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Pretty heinous weather right now.
Crazy day. We're riding side saddle on this horse because otherwise it burns our thighs. Now, today we're looking at the Tamron 70-210 f4, brand new lens. This is in Canon mount, but I've asked you along because, of course, we got 3 lenses to test here, so I need help, so thank you for coming. So what are you gonna be using here today?
Well, I'm pretty familiar with this lens. I actually still have the original version of this. Everyone else that I know that has one of these gets it because they need a 70-200, they want it to be sharp all the time. They don't care about f2.8, but lightness is important. You want something lightweight.
Well, and we're also talking about, not just a size difference, but also a cost difference as well, right? I mean, This is a great professional lens, it's affordable, but the Tamron promises to be even more affordable. Now you're rocking a 5DSR today because it's a high-res body. I've got the Nikon D850 because we are also testing the Nikon 70-200 f4. I do also want to mention, guys at home, that we're not doing a Canon versus Nikon. That's not really the idea here. What we're doing today is the Tamron a great viable choice whether you're going to buy a Canon system or a Nikon system? Do we go with this or do we stick with the OEM glass?
I don't think anyone talks about Canon versus Nikon, do they?
All the time, all the time.
Stop it. All right, so we were testing these lenses out. We were playing with the Sunstar, so f16, f22, f32. I prefer to do f16.
Okay.
Because past that, you get a little bit of diffraction.
Softness, it all kind of spreads out, yeah.
And this guy has a nice Sunstar.
Yeah, you were getting a really good job. The Canon and Nikon look pretty similar, right? We'd get a little bit on the edge. It was tough to make it work.
Yeah.
I do feel the Tamron, maybe it's a little more prone to flare, but that can be interesting in your photo, or it can wreck it. It would depend.
Funny thing is, though, it's a 70-200. I don't typically take
shoot that,
photos of the sun, get a Sunstar with
Usually
that.
a wide angle, something like
Always
that. Always
ultra wide.
All right, so we've come inside not just to get out of the sweltering sunlight, but also because the low light gives us a good test for image stabilization. Now, the Tamron 70-210 advertises 4 stops of VC, the Nikkor with their VR system, 4 stops as well, and the Canon claims 5. We're gonna do a bunch of tests, compare notes, and see how they all come out. So I guess the decision is, do you want butts or do you want heads?
Normally, I'd go for the butts, but testing the lens, we got a little bit more detail on the head, so let's go for that.
I appreciate you making that sacrifice. So Kyle, let's just preface our findings first by saying this is not a scientific test, but it's real world, and we're shooting here in low light situations. So your Canon lens, 5 stops of image stabilization, what did you find?
At 1/8 of a second, I was getting typical performance I was expecting. 1 in 10, 1 in 15 shots was really, really good.
So it's pushing it.
It's really pushing it.
Okay.
I wouldn't do any trustworthy images at 1/8 of a second.
But 15th of a second, at a 4-stop equivalent, no problem.
It was pretty doable.
Okay.
Yeah,
what about the Tamron?
Tamron, I was struggling. I was struggling at 1/15.
Okay, interesting.
Even. So, I was getting less.
With the Tamron and the Nikon, we're getting 4 stops, sort of as the rating for the image stabilizers in them. I was finding with the Nikkor VR, 4 stops advertised, no problem. I was getting 15th of a second. I could maybe even push to 8th. I mean, it was very, very respectable.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to talk about close-up capability on these lenses. Now, first off, the Canon and Nikon, very similar minimum focusing distances. These are no macro lenses by any stretch, but they do a pretty good job. Now the Tamron we actually have to talk about because this is kind of a mixed bag. It does give you the extra focal length and it does have a better minimum focusing distance.
So this is what I was shooting with the Canon, but with the Tamron, I have to move in about a foot.
However, we're finding at DPReview when they did tests, this lens is soft at 210 millimeters and it's also soft at its minimum focusing distance. So this is a problem. You can get better macro, but resolution's not going to be the best benefit here. It's going to be a little bit hazy.
Yeah, but that being said, it's actually pretty fun to play with. You just have to be aware that, yeah, if you want that tack sharpness, you're going to have to move that 1 foot backwards and then zoom out just a little bit.
Pineapple whip.
You haven't had a pineapple whip?
I've never had a pineapple whip.
Oh, they're so good.
I guess we're getting pineapple whip.
Yeah, they taste just like pineapple.
It does taste like pineapple.
So good.
So I just want to mention how the Tamron 70-210 puts the zoom collar at the front of the lens and the manual focus closer to the rear. And that's going to be opposite from both the Canon and the Nikon. Now, when it comes to the Nikon 70-200 f4, it operates the way that any Nikon lens does. It's very familiar. But that Tamron with the reverse, it takes a little bit of getting used to. At least it focuses the same as the Nikon. Now, if you're a Canon user going to that Tamron, everything's going to be backwards, and I feel that's going to take, a lot of time to just get used to. Now, of course, Kyle's been hogging the lens, so I haven't really gotten a chance to play with it too much, but I imagine he's having difficulty.
Chris was whinging about the focusing ring being opposite on these two. I don't find that to be much of a problem, but I guess Chris is just an unadaptable creature of habit.
Now, I know we're not testing autofocus tonight. I mean, it's not really the venue for it, but basically what we found at DPReview is that the Tamron lags a little bit behind the Canon and the Nikon. Okay, just slightly. I think if you're doing extreme sports or wildlife, you notice a difference, but otherwise, it's not really making a big impact. Are you finding any problems with the autofocus tonight on the Tamron?
I wasn't really having a whole lot of problems with the autofocus, but when I'm working, I need to get the shot. I almost always have the focus limiter on.
Okay.
I'm always shooting something fairly far away.
Right.
And then I'm often switching between stabilization mode 1 and 2. Stabilization 2 for panning shots. You have birds flying by, you have animals running by.
Right.
You want those panning shots?
Well, I mean, basically your only option here is going to be shutting it off. And not getting any stabilization. Yeah, it's important to note the Nikon and the Canon do give you those capabilities, and yeah, if you're shooting wildlife and sports, again, more reason why if that's a serious pursuit for you, you might be better off with the original manufacturer's lens. Okay, so looking at bokeh, we shot the merry-go-round. I mean, again, this is subjective stuff, right? Everybody's gonna have a different look, but I found the Nikon and the Canon and the Tamron actually all very clean. We're not getting onion rings or anything like that. Nice circular shape.
Yeah, very clean circles.
Yeah, however, I don't know if you agree, but I actually found the Tamron was more circular from the center to the edges, and the Nikon and Canon, you got cat's eye shape pretty quick, even just out of the center part of the frame.
Like, my internal bias was prepared for the Canon to have the best bokeh.
Right.
And once I saw the Tamron run, it was just no-brainer.
It's nice and smooth. You like that better?
I preferred that. Yeah, I did prefer it.
Hey everyone, it's Jordan to talk about some things that are important if you're using these three lenses for video. And right off the bat, I'm very concerned about focus breathing with these. Now, the Tamron exhibits by far the most of it, but you have to remember too, it has the widest focus range. But still, if you're pulling focus on that lens, it's gonna look like a zoom. The Canon and Nikon are actually surprisingly well controlled for that. As well, I usually shoot manual focus when I'm working with these, so how far across the barrel the focus ring goes is really important to me. The Tamron actually has the nicest one, 180 degrees around the barrel. Canon is quite a bit shorter, but still very usable, about 120 degrees. Nikon is the shortest, so kind of the least optimized for video. If you're a Nikon shooter looking to shoot video, I would definitely look at the Tamron. If you're a Canon shooter, I'd lean towards the Canon lens, obviously.
Ah, so good, isn't it? Yes. Woo. I'm having fun. The light's just getting good.
Yeah.
I'm getting thirsty. Got myself a root beer.
Oh, nice. Okay, I guess you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Well, then should we let you go shoot? Should we start taking some pictures and get the light while we can?
See what we can get.
All right. All right, so I just want to give you a quick summary of our findings on the Tamron 70-210 f4 and how it compares to the other lenses we tested. And again, we don't have a lab, but this is just from the experiences we found. However, first off, if you go to DPReview.com, check out the full review on the Tamron 70-210 f4. It actually has very good comparisons to the Canon as well. And you know, just to summarize what we're finding, excellent image quality overall on the Tamron, but the Canon is a better lens. Not only overall, but also wide open. However, overall, as you saw, the bokeh was pleasing, vignetting's minimal, chromatic aberrations well handled. They did a great job. Now, unfortunately, there aren't any comparisons versus the Nikon 70-200 f4, but we did a lot of testing with that lens just ourselves at the Stampede grounds and a day before as well. And basically, this is what we're finding. The Tamron and the Nikon are very, very close optically. It's really hard to pick a clear winner between the two, and considering the price differences, again, that's a big plus for the Tamron.
All right, Kyle, well, I think we're done. First off, thank you for doing double duty and managing both lenses. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Now, you know, as a final aside, I mean, at the Tamron, the real big benefit here is the lower cost, right?
Yeah.
And you're saving quite a bit of money, especially considered when you stack it up against the Nikon. What do you think for value for the dollar?
If this was back in the day when I was buying my 70-200, I would take a close look at this one.
Right. Now, it is a very simple body design. I mean, the hood is pretty chintzy, but did you find it was, you know, cheap feeling, or like the build quality was poor or anything like that?
I mean, I could tell it's plastic.
Right.
But
I mean,
as far as plastic goes, it doesn't feel horrible. Like if I'm squeezing it and playing with it, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of give.
Okay, we're talking about the Tamron versus the original manufacturer. So the Tamron versus the Nikon, unless you needed the focus limiter and the autofocusing features, I'd really have a hard time going to the Nikon when the Tamron's on the market for so much less money.
Yeah.
But I think with the Canon, it's a different story. I mean, the new 70-200 f4 from Canon is optically the best out of the bunch. It does give you some appreciable benefits over this if you don't mind paying the extra premium.
Yeah. If I was shooting professionally, that extra bit of performance, that little bit better of stabilization and that little bit nicer sharpness.
A little bit faster autofocus.
That would matter to me.
Sure.
That would matter. But if for a fun lens, you just want something, you're going on holidays and you want something basic, you don't want to be changing lenses all the time.
This could be a great, well-made workhorse for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your help. Okay, beautiful photos. Check out Kyle's stuff. Go to Kyle Photos. Check out his photos. And also, thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget, go to Instagram, go to Twitter, and please subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below, but hopefully you found this useful. And, well, we'll be back very soon with another video. Thanks so much for joining us.